really strike a victory after the recent landmark decision that struck down affirmative action. I don't think that they basically won a victory. I just believe that they did a victory lap with the white supremacists. Lawyer Henderson's live. Ladies and gentlemen, how are you? I'm Lawyer Henderson, and it's good to continue to mess up my life. We are still here. We're still here. We're still here. U.S. Supreme Court strike down affirmative action. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Lawyer Henderson. I'm your gracious host. It's good to be back. I was on vacation for 2 weeks, ladies and gentlemen. And people are like, well, why are you just not talking about this? I said, well, I was on vacation for almost a month now. Okay, a brother got to take a break from the internet. A brother got to take a break from a lot of stuff. Okay, but I promised you that we were going to talk about the BRICS summit tonight, but I had to talk about affirmative action. Remember, I forgot that this so-called landmark decision was struck down by the conservative majority of the U.S. Supreme Court. And people were on my feed, they were in my comments like, man, what do you think about this decision, man? You ain't said nothing about it. And I said, yeah. Everybody, in the black media pretty much already said everything for me, But but tomorrow we're going to talk about the BRICS summit that's coming up next month in South Africa. And they're saying that they're expecting Putin to be arrested. I'm like, man, I don't think that how the Africans talking in South Africa, I don't think that nobody going to put handcuffs on them now. But no, we'll be talking about that tomorrow. Actually, we're talking about this U.S. Supreme Court, the Asians, and how they've been crying. You see, have you noticed that the Asians have not been able to build anything like black people have, like when it comes to building our own schools in the United States? I mean, I'm not talking about Asia and Asia or the Chinese. I'm talking about the Asians that's specifically in the United States. And this recent court case proved to you that the Asians love to basically cling on to white supremacy. I have this new news article on that I took from The Guardian. Shout out to The Guardian. The Guardian's always asking for money. They're always asking for donations. But I give shout out to Edwin Rios in Oakland and Chris Stein in Washington, because they did a recent article on the U.S. Supreme Court rule against affirmative action in Harvard and UNC cases when it comes to race-based admissions into colleges and universities in this country. Now, here's the problem. The Asian community have way more black people that goes into these Ivy League schools. And nobody, of course, well, now black people are raising legacy admissions where rich white folks or white children are going to these schools. They're raising that point now that the U.S. Supreme Court has struck down this decision here. But we already told folks that we're going to go backwards. White folks, their whole system is about ruling on things and then taking it back. That's their whole system. That's their whole game. Okay, we told you, and even Amos Wilson. This is the reason why I like listen to him, because he laid out the strategy of the white supremacist playbook. And that is that we give you something, then we take it back. We give you something, we take it back. There is democracy, then there is discrimination. There is this, there is that. White people basically are always going to give you something, then take it back. It's not going to be anything they're going to do, or it's going to be placed in place for you to basically stick with it. And this is the reason why the white man can't be making all the rules anymore. But having said that, this is the reason why people are giving up on this country. Okay, and it's not really a country anymore. It got a president, but it is losing its armies, it's losing its members of the police force, it's losing its firefighters. As I told you, 60% of white Americans ages 55 to 65 are headed to retirement. And just like Jim Crow Joe said, in the next 20 years, this country will be minority white, and it will be doomed because he recognized that it would be most of these people in this country will be Black, Hispanic, and Asians. And the Asians continue, along with the Hispanics, like they did in Florida, to make the wrong decisions. And that is to align themselves with white supremacy. And this is okay, because as Black people was basically, they thought that Black people were going to get mad since this was against us, that basically it didn't affect us at all, because we already knew that white women benefited from affirmative action anyway, not Black folks. And so these white supremacists think that they basically are smart. They think that they got all kinds of brains. They think that they can attack certain types of laws that was put in place specifically for Black people, and taking them back and thinking that they're going to get some type of amusement from it. It's not happening that way. They were shocked to learn that Black people didn't really care about affirmative action being struck down, because like I said earlier, and like other black content creators have pointed out, it didn't really do nothing for us anyway. You see? So the Asians is hooking up with white supremacy to do this. But I want to start this article off from The Guardian. It says that the U.S. Supreme Court rules against affirmative action in Harvard and UNC cases. Biden said he was considering executive action following court's decision to limit power of universities to consider an applicant's race and admissions. It writes here, it starts off, the U.S. Supreme Court, driven by its conservative supermajority, on Thursday ended race-conscious admissions at universities across the country, tossing out decades of precedent in American life and delivering a huge blow to the cause of greater student diversity on campuses. Okay? Now, as we basically already should know, that while these Asians are crying, saying that they are basically being discriminated against, they got all these high test scores. Black folks, we wasn't tripping because we got our own HBCUs here. Okay? That means that the athletes are going to start going to these HBCUs, as they should. As they should. Leave these white Ivy League schools alone. If they want all the Asians, they can get all the Asians they want, and the Hispanics. Okay? It goes on to say that the conservative justices concluded that the admissions policies at Harvard University and the University of North Carolina violated the U.S. Constitution's Equal Protection Clause. This effectively prohibits the use of affirmative action policies in the U.S. that acted as the tipping point among many other admission factors to raise the number of Black, Hispanic, and other underrepresented minority students at the selective U.S. higher education colleges and universities. And see, that's where Black people made the biggest mistake. It's advocating for other groups. Because these groups now is turning around and they're working with the white supremacists to take all of the rules and the laws that we fought for in the 60s in the 70s and the equal protection under the law, everything that we fought for, now other people are benefit from. And as I said in other arenas, or we basically were clapping back, and we basically helped to get the Voting Rights Acts and the Civil Rights Acts passed. The white folks was doing something for other groups. This is the reason why voting is becoming unpopular among Black people, especially the young Black folks. They were shocked to see that in the 2022 election that there was not really a lot of Black people that was turning out at the polls. I said that in other arenas. But however, the article goes on to read here that the court concluded that the Harvard and the University of North Carolina's race-conscious admissions programs failed to abide by the narrow restrictions laid out by the court in previous cases, noting that the university program must comply with strict scrutiny, may never use race as a stereotype or negative, and must at some point end. The 6 conservative-leaning judges on the 9-strong court prevailed over the 3 liberal-leaning justice, with the newest member and the first Black woman on the court, Ketanji Brown Jackson, issuing a stark dissent saying the ruling meant it would take longer for racism to leave us, end quote. Joe Biden said he was considering executive action and will ask the Department of Education to look into ways to maintain diversity in university student bodies. The U.S. president said this is not a normal court of the bench, which has swung far to the right with the appointment of 3 right-wing justices during Donald Trump's presidency, giving it a 6.3 conservative supermajority. Speaking at the White House, Biden said discrimination still exists in America. Today's decision does not change that. It's a simple fact. An analyst of the students' records by the Students' Fair Admissions, a conservative activist group representing Asian American students, and a lawsuit against Harvard found that the institution on average rated Asian American applicants lower in personality and likability ratings than others. In oral arguments, Harvard attorney Seth Waxman argued that the university did not discriminate against Asian Americans, noting that the university weighed multiple factors in their admission process. You see, now this is what these folks did. You got a lot of Black people, athletes, who go to some of these schools to play sports. Now these coaches are going to have a tough time getting some Black folks to come there. They're going to have some tough time to try to recruit because of this landmark decision here. Okay? And see, like I said, these Asians, they don't want to build nothing by themselves in this country when it comes to themselves here. But they want to basically find policies that could go against Black folks and to work with the white supremacists to try to feed their egos here. Okay? And a lot of you basically were writing me and telling me this and saying, hey, man, what do you think about this? I mean, fine. If you're going to get rid of affirmative action, let's get rid of when it comes to race, let's get rid of legacy admissions too. Okay? I agree with y'all. It goes on to say here, the court found that the university's reason for using race as a factor as a means of improving diversity failed to articulate a meaningful connection between the means they employ and the goal that they pursue. This is the reason why when these judges, as I often said, and when they talk there about their precedent don't mean nothing. It's just basically them arguing against the law. That's all they're doing. And basically, they're not even following the law. They're not interpreting the law correctly and fairly because they're hiding under or from, the real law because of their preceding. This is the reason why, Amos Wilson taught us you can't put your faith in white folks' laws because they're going to contradict themselves. They're going to come with all kinds of excuses, and they're going to say, I'm white and I say so, and this is why you don't want to follow and pursue their laws and what they're saying, because they're always going to contradict themselves. It goes on to write here that that in majority opinion, Chief Justice John Roberts wrote that despite the university's commendable goals, they fell short of constitutional standards. The APA Q, I hope I said that right, categories universities use to measure racial composition were plainly overbroad and undermines instead of promotes respondents' goals, Roberts wrote. Roberts added that the Harvard program resulted in fewer Asian American students being admitted to the university, violating Equal Protection Clause standards that the race may never be used as a negative. Yet, by accepting race-based admission programs in which some students may obtain preferences on the basis of race alone, respondents program tolerate the very thing that Gruttert forward stereotyping, Roberts wrote. Respondents' assertion that race is never a negative factor in their admissions programs cannot withstand scrutiny, Robert wrote. College admissions are zero-sum, and a benefit provided to some applicants, but not to others, necessarily advantage the former at the expense of the latter, end quote. You see, this is happening without no real effect because, as I told you, people are leaving colleges and universities. So, of course, you can make these rules and laws when people when colleges are closing down. It doesn't really affect the American people here. So these Supreme Court people are just trying to get victory and victory and victory when nobody is not even going to college like that anymore. In fact, it will get even more worse when it comes to college admissions, because the illegal immigrants you're bringing in there, most of them don't go to college. The court's decision against Harvard University and the University of North Carolina will limit the power of colleges and universities, particularly at selective institutions, to consider an applicant's race as factor in the admissions process. Past research shows that the end of race consciousness in university admissions, which affect roughly a quarter of U.S. colleges and universities, will result in a decline of Black, Latino, and Indigenous students admitted to highly selective universities that may cause a cascading reshuffling of those students to other less selective universities and likely to make the elite institutions less diverse. Highly selective private and state universities will not scramble to pursue race-neutral alternatives to improving diversities, a phenomenon that past research in states where affirmative action is already banned shows will never reach the same level of diversity as race-conscious admissions would. The court noted that the students could still discuss their race in their applications, but that the universities wrongly concluded that the touchstone of the individual's identity is not challenges bested, skills built, or lessons learned, but the color of their skin, you see. And so white people want to do all of this because they're sitting on $100 trillion. And yet they have not paid reparations to us. So now you want to take out race and all this and talk about it's not about the person's skin when you only have white folks sitting around here that is benefiting from legacy emissions, benefiting from the economy, benefiting what their slave ancestors did to our ancestors. See, now race is not a factor anymore, you see. And this was their game strategy. This is what their plan was. And this is the reason why it's a waste of time to be involved in their politics and not playing their games anymore. The court argued that the university's underlying goal of using race-conscious admissions until meaningful representation and meaningful diversity is achieved on their campuses lacked a logical endpoint and resulted in unconstitutional racial balances. The court decision on Thursday tears against the fabric of college universities, going against the decades of precedent consistently upheld by the highest court in the land. In the 1960s, after John F. Kennedy first ordered government contractors to take affirmative action to combat racial discrimination, colleges and universities developed policies to further diversities who enrolled. You see, this is the ideal of saying that, well, in these jobs and stuff like that, we all know that white people are on the highest managerial in the positions in these corporations, especially in the Fortune 500 companies. So when you talk about people who really haven't worked a day in their life, getting a heads up, oh yeah, they can surely talk about things should not be about race because they already got what they need in order to make these decisions. And then what they're trying to do is trying to tell you, well, you shouldn't be talking about race because it's not about you being black and white because, we don't see color here. Yeah, you didn't see color after you got all the gains as white people. You didn't see color, as I told you in other arenas, most of your president, with the exception of one, wouldn't be black. You see, there would be a mixture of white and black men being the president of this country if you didn't see color. But these white folks would like to trick you into thinking that they could basically discriminate against you and then put themselves in these positions and put other unqualified white folks into managerial positions and then say, oh, it's not about race. We have to strike down affirmative action. But this is good, though, because now since these Asians have done this, they have put themselves in a very precarious situation. Now, since they've done this, they have not only teamed up with these white supremacists to do this, but now look at their crying. They're crying about the fact that, okay, since you're not using race based upon emissions, now the people are getting fired from their jobs. And even in the corporate sector, Asians really don't even make up that much of managerial positions and roles in these corporations as well. And now this ruling will only make sure that continues to happen. Moreover, and this is why that white supremacist that they teamed up with, he wanted to use an Asian as a plaintiff because it hides behind certain types of ways into which white folks can stay in their managerial roles in these corporations. And then it gets to the fact that you basically didn't fire a person based up on their color of their skin, but the Supreme Court is going to say that race was not a factor, just like they did black people. Now they're going to do it to Asians. And Asians are going to be extremely hurt by this because the ruling was about to make sure that other groups, not just black folks, but other groups, because the law never had worked for black folks in the first place because it wasn't designed for us. Okay. When we come back from our music break, we're going to continue with this article. We're going to continue with this particular live. You're listening to the Lawyers and Podcast Show. We come back from the music break. We're going to continue with our discussion on why these, asking the question, did the Asians win here? Did they have a strike of victory? Was this the right thing to do? A lot of y'all out there in the comments, everybody is saying, even in the black media, that the Asians tricked themselves, that the Asians fooled themselves to team up with the white supremacists. Well, we'll talk about it more. You've been listening to the Lawyers and Podcast Show. We'll be right back. The Asians think that they have struck a victory when the U.S. Supreme Court voted 6-3 to end race-based admission decisions at the college and university, and that one Asian man was the plaintiff in the lawsuit that was filed against Harvard University. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm lawyer Henderson. Welcome to the Lawyers and Podcast Show. Hit that thumbs up button. Hit that likes button. Like, share, subscribe. Leave a comment there. Also, don't forget to, send a love offering if you feel like you basically want to send that. The Cash App is down there. And we're back talking about asking the question, I should say, did the Asians really win a victory here? I don't think that they won a victory at all. I don't think these Asians basically realize what they have done now, okay? Because now with these so-called nonpartisan Supreme Court justices, they're trying to roll back. And white folks have done this before. Just look at the 1870s when they basically had civil rights policies and they rolled them back. And then, like I said, Black people had to wait another 100 years and then another civil rights bill to pass. So white people basically want you to so-called progress in society, but then they also want you to regress in society. And this is the name of their game, okay? That's why people are realizing there's no such thing, in other countries, there's no such thing as democracy, and capitalism is the worst. You see, here's the thing, though. We've been talking about this forever, that this does not harm us. This is something that the Asians thought that they could align with the white supremacists and think that this is a victory, thinking that they just slap Black folks in the face. And it's just going to come back to haunt them. This is going to be good. This is good. And they were shocked that Black people didn't react to the affirmative action situation because, no, we're not like the old civil rights generation. We basically already knew that this didn't work for us. This worked for white women. This was an attack on them because now you don't really have to put white women into certain types of positions either. And since white women, a lot of them are going against their men and want to take his role, they're in a disagreement with them right now here. So these Asians basically aligned themselves with these white supremacists, and now they're fit to see the bottom line here. Let's talk about it, and then we can wrap up here. You've been listening to the Lawyers and Podcast Show. Let's talk about it. Thumbs up, guys. Come on, thumbs up. Like, share, and subscribe. Leave your comments. The ideal met its first challenge in 1978, and the case involved Alan Bake, a white man who was denied admissions to the University of California at Davis Medical School. The court concluded that race could be a factor in the admissions process, but stopped colleges from setting racial quotas. In 2003, in the case of Grutter versus Bollinger, the U.S. Supreme Court that ruled education institutions can factor in race as means of achieving diversity at colleges and universities because it represented a compelling governmental interest. Okay? From that moment, though, the clock ticked for race-conscious admissions, and Justice Sandra Day O'Connor wrote in the majority opinion that 25 years from now, the use of racial preference will no longer be necessary. In the last decade, the conservative activist Edward Bloom had led challenges seeking to curtail racial preferences in different aspects of the American society. Most recently in a 2013 case gutting the Voting Rights Act. More than a decade later, in 2016, the U.S. Supreme Court narrowly voted to uphold race-conscious admissions in a blown-back case by Abigail Fisher, a white woman denied admissions to the University of Texas at Austin. But since then, the court has shifted further to the right, with a supermajority of 6 conservative justices following the new appointments during the Trump administration. The entire point of the Edge Equal Protection Clause is that treating treating someone differently because their skin color is not likely treating them different because they are from a city, from a suburb, or because they play the violin poorly or well, Robert wrote. Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson reaccused herself from the Harvard case, but issued a blistering dissenting opinion in the UNC case, noting although former race-linked legal barriers are gone, race still matters to live experiences of all Americans in normal ways, and today's ruling made things worse, not better. If colleges of the country are required, if the colleges of this country are required to ignore things that matters, it will not just leave us, and ultimately ignoring race just makes the matters worse. Justice Sonia Sotomayor also issued a dissent, warning that the ruling would entrench segregation in the highest education. The result of bans of affirmative action have been devastating and long-lasting, seeing the number of Black and Latino students plummet. End quote. And that was by The Guardian. Now, here's the problem. You Asians, y'all dig your own grave. The question now is, are you going to benefit from this? The answer is no. Lining yourself with the white supremacists, it made them basically now want to further get rid of Asians from these corporate positions. And then they start, after affirmative action, they had some Black women, some Black lesbian, other women from, Warner Brothers and other places. They start letting these Black women go. They start going into these other corporate jobs, getting these people out of here. Why? Because, the Supreme Court says that we don't have to use race-based policies and blah, blah, blah. And this is the reason why Black people, we've been, building our own institutions. We got our own historic Black colleges, but we do not have our own businesses. And this is the reason why we're focusing on business, while other people are trying to relax in the system of white supremacy, trying to basically, like these bootleg Negroes like Roland Martin and other people, what they want to do is have a comfortable role in white people's society and in white people's jobs. But what we're saying, we basically didn't benefit from affirmative action, was not going to benefit from affirmative action, and we know it. Let these white folks have their little Ivy schools. Let them have everything that they want, ladies and gentlemen. It does not matter. What Black people need to stay on is focus on building our own institutions, our own, where we already got our own historically Black colleges. We need to strengthen those up. We need to keep the boulets out. And then basically, we need to invest in ourselves, invest in businesses, and don't worry about what these white folks are doing. They're becoming a minority in this country. And so therefore, we cannot focus on their policies. We must focus on ourselves. And that is what we're doing. Okay? We're not worried about Asians who want to align themselves with white supremacy, and Hispanics and Latinos, just like in Florida, who voted for DeSantis and now is now upset because he's making policies against them. We see we are waking up to that factor, and we're sick and tired of these minorities and people of color crap talking points. And so therefore, this is good. This is good for Black folks. This is good for us, because we knew that affirmative action didn't benefit us. Okay, this attack was actually on Asians and white women. And so now what we're doing now is we as black people, we're focused. You see, they had some black chick. I don't think she was from America. I think she was from a foreign country, but she was hugging this Asian after the Supreme Court was saying, we want diversity and blah, blah, blah. Oh, these Asians are now fit to get what they deserve. They're fit to get what they deserve because now people are going to, these white folks are going to really do them dirty moreover now. Oh man, this is good. This is good. If you have not been subscribing to the Lawyers and Podcast show, check for your notifications and things as we come on. YouTube have me on the shadow ban. They've been striking down all of my videos and stuff. They've been claiming that there has been so-called content violations and stuff like that. So what we're doing is we're preparing to do some TikTok videos as well. We are preparing to upload videos on other types of platforms. We're going to also be doing press releases where the videos will be encoded into the press release so y'all can watch certain minutes of that. We're going to be asking people to give us large donations so that we could basically have a website that is going to basically bring our content on once you see our website. Once you go to our website. We got a lot of stuff going on, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, we're going to also get on other platforms, not just YouTube. We're trying to grow. We're trying to expand. We're trying to do some things. So donations will help. It will help us get out there. It will help us do more podcasts. It will help us do more videos, video essays. It will help us even make more movies, television shows. It will combine us along with books and stuff. We got books that we're doing. We are basically preparing to be a huge media platform. And so now we are basically on the road and we're going to be coming and we're going to be building a vast media machine. And these white folks don't know it's not going to know what to do with us, you see. And so that's the reason why we have to do our own thing. And that's the reason why ScrewTube has been hating. They've been taking subscribers away from me. They've been lying, talking about nobody is listening to my podcast. They've been cutting my numbers down of people watching me and stuff like that. And so they've been doing a lot of stuff to me. And they have not been sending the algorithm to me and all of that stuff. And that's fine. But because we have other platforms and stuff. We'll be back on Blog Talk Radio. You'll also be able to take calls and stuff as that nature. I want to thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, for listening to the Lawyers and Podcast show. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about South Africa. They're hosting the BRICS Summit in South Africa next month in August. And there's a situation where the ICC had called for the arrest of President Vladimir Putin of Russia. And so the article that I got interesting, it says that South Africa to host BRICS Summit despite Putin arrest warrant. You see, these white folks are already up there messing with this man, and he is acting just like them. He's acting just like them, just like Hitler acted like white folks. Hitler is no different from other white men. Come on. Okay? Hitler is the problem. This is only one white man. Come on. There's a lot of white men who's been the problem, ladies and gentlemen. It's a collective of them. And so that's the reason why the black media exists. And that's why we're going to continue, despite all of the pushback from these good white folks. If you're not subscribed to the Lawyers and Podcast show, go ahead and do so. I'm Lawyer Henderson. I'm the great host. I didn't expect to be on that long. Please subscribe.